really cross step with our back leg because we're just going to square ourselves up. So from here, I like to do this cross step when we have a very little engagement. So from here, generally trying to interpret, okay, what stance he's in. So let's say right now he's on his right hip. I'd rather switch and from here take a cross step to the opposite side. As from here, this is where, let's say he lacks some degree of defense versus if I were to just cross step across, it's much easier for him to intercept me. We can also do this in conjunction with a lot of our hand fighting like we discussed previously. And this can be done especially when we are managing this engagement, where from here, I can start looking to put him down slightly or just kind of put him in this intermediary position where he's not necessarily able to be as effective with his hooks and start looking to take a cross step. And from here, now we've created a situation where we can put him down to his back via an indirect means by threatening a good angle and him conceding. And this is usually going to be done via our lead leg. If we were to just engage randomly, it's going to be fairly difficult. We could do some degree of like stepping inside, but this is going to be more related to what we were talking about earlier. However, if we want to do this, it's usually going to be fairly quickly when we put him in this kind of leaning back, but not all the way back position. However, something I like to do, especially when there's a little bit more connection, maybe there's some degree of grip, right? I like to use this back step. So the back step is that of the rear leg. And so back step is traditionally thought of as just back stepping into the legs, right? But I find a back step is also a very good means to create an angle. So I was initially inspired in Gordon's DVD. He talks about back stepping out of a De La Riva. So like if he De La Rivas me, right? Looking to back step in this direction and then shearing and kicking our leg out. But I've started using this a lot in situations where we're using it in conjunction with our lead leg. So maybe our lead leg's on the outside or it's partially occupied. So instead we start looking to take a large back step. And from here we threaten a pretty significant angle. And we can start looking to pull what was once our lead leg out. And then from here, we can start looking to cut a good angle and almost force him into a situation where he has to concede. We can also use this to almost threaten passes to one side. And as they look to square up to me, I can take cross steps in the opposite direction. So from here, especially when we combine this with multi-steps, we can start looking to really mix it up. So I can play here, he faces me and I go cross step. And I can really start overwhelming him with footwork. And now once again, when we add in grips and putting him down to his back, right? We go back here, we take cross steps, I go back again, right? I can really keep the same leg orientation and really threaten cutting angles to both sides. So let's say I'm a right leg lead. I can pass to my right via back steps and I can pass to my left via cross steps. And obviously, once we interplay between various stances, we can do it in like the opposite way, but I think this is a very good way to mix up your movement out of certain stances. So I like this a lot, especially with dealing with certain guards, but just in terms of movement, I also think it's a great tool. All right, so now we're gonna be going over the last part that's fairly necessary to engage in this hand fight against our opponent, is that we make sure that they stay grounded. So what are the specific skills and what are the things we need to focus our attention on to make it so that we can keep them on the ground? So for example, when Kenta's seated, generally, if he's like conceding and he wants to stay here, this isn't too much of an issue. But when we really feel the threat of him looking to heist up, then we have to think about, okay, how can we keep him down? So just switch your hips. So there are generally going to be two ways that we're going to want to keep our opponent down. One is going to be by like managing his heist leg. So we have to interpret which hip Kenta is on, and then the hip, so in this case he's on his left hip, we want to control his left leg. Because let's say I control his left leg. If he stays on his left hip and he wants to stand up, he can only really stand to the height of his knee. As opposed to if I were to control the opposite leg when he's on this left leg, now he's going to stand up and this becomes a wrestling exchange. This isn't all too terrible, but it is problematic, and it does give him more opportunity to counter and escape bottom position. So what we want to do is make sure that we know which hip he's on and be prepared to act accordingly. There are ways we can do this directly by looking to grab his ankle, right? Because now he stays on this hip, he can't heist. But we can also place our foot here to make it difficult for him to retract. This isn't as robust as a grip. From here, he can bring his knee to his chest, but now it requires further action, and then we can use this in conjunction with other things. But if we were to really like do this fairly quickly, I see he's heisting, and I just step through here. This can, once again, limit his ability to heist. So this is one way we can go about doing this, by worrying about the heist leg. The other way, we'll go back to this topic in a little bit, just based on his reaction, but the other way we're going to look to keep him down is by staying head over head. And so this is going to be in a situation where we're a little bit more engaged. So maybe we don't necessarily have access to the legs, maybe he's hand fighting well. I have to stay head over head. So I can play with my head relatively close to his, but if I don't have weight over him, it's very easy for him to like snap me down in this case, heist up, and I won't be able to hold him down. So we want to, once again, still engage in this